quotas, but they wouldn't have it for like the top C levels. And if you're not seeing people who you can like recognize and relate to, then that might also exasperate feelings of, well, maybe I don't belong here. And, and I think it can be problematic for women. And then I think it gets even more problematic when it comes to like marginalized communities, because they're just seeing less role models. And then social media could maybe be helpful for that, because you are getting access to people who you might relate to, who you can see, talk about how they've got there and how they overcame these challenges. So I do think it's a double-edged sword. I'm always very careful not to completely, write it off and say, oh no, it's just the worst and we're all comparing each other, terrible. I think on one hand, it's made things worse. On another hand, there are still benefits to it. I think it's interesting. It's certainly something, when I'm on social media, I don't know about you, but I am always trying to like keep myself in check and look inwards to kind of look a bit more like, where have I got to? How have I got here? Where was I 6 months ago? Where am I now? Rather than going, oh, well, where were they and where am I in comparison to them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I try and do the same, look more at my own journey, because if I look like, say, the first photos I took when I bought my very first camera, I would never want to show anybody those. Like, that was totally back in the learning days. So if I do things like that, or even if I look like, I'm not really a numbers person, but if I look at how much I built up my business, or how it went from like, basically bringing nothing into where it is today, where I can rely on it for my income and things like that. That is really what we should be doing, looking at how far we've come, because you don't know what someone else's circumstances are. You don't know how long it took them to get to where they are, or, what kind of help they had along the way. And we also don't know, I see photographers do it all the time. I'm fully booked for the next 2 years and this kind of stuff. And I'm like, no, you're not. Like, if you are, good for you, but let's be honest. And people have told me that they do that as like a sales tactic to try and look, high in demand and whatever else. And I think everybody tries different things that work for them. And if that works for you, that's fine. But see, if you start comparing yourself to what you think everybody else's reality is, that is just a recipe for, for feeling bad about yourself.
Absolutely. And you never get out of that cycle. That's the thing. And also, like, we all have different ideas of what success actually is. Success, there's not one unified, here's what success looks like. And I think sometimes we fall into that trap. What's successful for one person measures as success, and what their priorities are might be completely different to you. I think what I find so interesting too is that, there's such a push these days about, celebrate your individualism, celebrate what makes you you. So much that, I don't know about you, but I keep seeing ads now. It's getting now packaged. Being an individual is now getting packaged and used to sell as like mass market products. That is how prevalent it is. And it's all about, I kind of touched on it, authenticity on social media, showing people who you really are. And don't get me wrong, again, I completely think we have to absolutely recognize that this like individualism and all that is still very wrapped up in like society's quote unquote norms. And, especially this year, there's been so much about prejudices that absolutely came to light. So, that's a whole bigger topic that, probably don't have time to cover. But yeah, so I am kind of saying it with that sort of caveat. So, but, we are getting, there's so much like pushing, celebrate what makes you, what's individual. But then at the same time, we're like, oh, we're on social media trying to show how our authentic selves 1 minute. And then the next minute you're doing a scroll being like, but what is success? How successful are they? What are they doing? What's going on with them? So I think it's so interesting that, even this kind of push for being individual, celebrate what success is to you, celebrate what makes you you, still hasn't really done much to make us compare ourselves less to other people. Or at least, again, that's just anecdotally, like maybe it has in a bigger picture, but I find that I think that's a very interesting paradox.
Yeah, you're right. I totally see what you mean. It's like, be yourself, but also want to be like everybody else out there in terms of like what you're achieving or you think they're achieving. Yeah. And I try and check myself with that a lot as well, because, I think a good example is awards. So you'll see some businesses who are very like, we're award winning, we've won this and we've won that. And for some people, if that's a goal of theirs and that's what success means to them, that's fine. I've always been very hesitant about awards. I know, like, in my industry, a lot of the awards, it's like you pay to take part in the awards. You know, there are certain wedding awards in the wedding industry that it's like you pay to be considered, and then it's like a popularity contest. You have to push everybody on your social media channels to vote for you, even if they're people that have never worked with you. Maybe there's someone you went to high school with that's on your Facebook page and they're voting for you. So to me, most awards anyway, don't really hold much merit. It wouldn't make me book a service or buy a product from a business. That's probably not true for everyone. Some people might see award winning and go, right, I want that, and that's fine. There's obviously different buying habits and things like that. But I sometimes, if I'm having a bit of a down day and I see, oh, this person's won this award, it really makes me go, why am I not winning awards? But if I actually break it down, it's not important to me. I've not applied or entered any of my stuff into the awards. So why am I even comparing myself?
I know, isn't it strange? I mean, I'm actually the same as you. I'm quite skeptical about awards. I mean, if I ever win one, I'll deny this. I'll deny it. No, but I'm quite skeptical because there's so many, like, you know, just throughout my career, there's like, you know, I've gone to like award shows and it's like, oh, the sponsor has won 3 categories already. And like, don't get me wrong, I know there's work that goes in behind it and they do have judging panels. But, you know, I am quite aware that sometimes it is like who's got money to enter into it. Yeah, and you know who's got those connections. There's a lot of networking. It's just not quite as merit based. Even though I'm not saying the winners, the people who win, are not good. Usually they are very good, and it's not throwing shade on them at all. But sometimes you are like, there's more that goes on behind the scenes than just, oh, we did a good project and here it is. I think there's like the people have to remind themselves about it, which I think is very important to remember. But I definitely think, like, you know, I definitely think that kind of like voicing, like redefining success is such an important part of trying to combat it and like just try to push past it. You know, what actually is success to you? What can you control? What can't you control? What are you doing? And, you know, is the things you're doing, you know, if you were entering tons of awards because you decided that was important to your business, then I'm sure, like, you know, winning them and meeting the criteria would be a measure of success. Whereas if you're like, no, I just want to build up my networks, I want to, you know, have enough clients that I can have a good work-life balance, then that's different. That's a whole different measure of success. And I think sometimes reminding yourself of like, what are you working towards? What success is to you? What can you control and what can't you control is so, so important. And I think it's another thing I find really interesting, another fun fact, when I was like, this is kind of to do with like the pandemic. So when I was looking again at like what's going on just now, some people actually have reported that since working from home, not being in the office, their feelings of imposter syndrome have gone down, which is interesting. And I sometimes wonder if that's not being surrounded by people with different goals or not comparing yourself to other people, if that's, you know, having a bit of space. And then on the flip side, the people who say they still have it are saying it's making them worse because they're seeing what other people are doing and they're working harder, they're working longer, they're burning themselves out, which if you're already in a state of burnout, to try to be impartial and step back and feel good about yourself, that's that's hard. That's very hard to do. But then I think it also shows that kind of bigger picture. If it is, you know, if people who are now working from home are feeling better about themselves and their achievements and, you know, again, what success is to them and not comparing themselves as much, what is it then about workplace culture that is maybe exacerbating this? We're all trying to look at this as an individual thing. We're all trying to say, well, you know, all these, again, this industry that's built up around it. What can I do better? How can you fix this? What techniques you can do? Well, should we be looking at a bigger picture? Should we be looking at, you know, what is it about our industry or work culture that's making people, you know, feel like this? Is it, just to keep the example of the awards going, you know, do we need more transparency there? Is it about people, you know, what do we need? Is there something we can do externally about the culture that we're in that can help stop this? Because I don't think imposter syndrome helps, if I'm like with anything, I'm completely honest. I know some people do say it kind of pushes them on, it motivates them, and, you know, that's how you feel. That is absolutely legit. But I just think it makes people work to burnout. It makes people not ask for their the pay that they deserve, or turn down opportunities that they would be amazing at, or not speak up in meetings, put themselves down. There's so many negative parts to it, and I think that's definitely something that I think looking at the bigger picture is definitely something that I find really interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know if part of it is because, as you say, we're seeing these parallels, not just people like us who maybe spend a little bit more time online or have like our community online, and compare that to somebody who their community's in their office building. As you say, like, you get that on both sides, and it's really easy to just say like, right, I'm going to keep my own goals and my own idea of success in mind. But it's like you constantly have to check yourself. And that's, exactly what you said about the awards, not to diminish anybody who's won awards, because you're right, a lot of times the businesses that win them are fantastic. And there are some award shows that absolutely have, are based on merit and are judged by peers and are very professional. There are awards out there. In fact, I interviewed someone a few weeks ago who's up for an award like that. I mean, she's done amazing with her business and it's so worth celebrating. But I think the key is not to feel bad about yourself if you aren't winning awards, if that's not even something that's on your list. And it's just remembering that, like, if you win an award, or you get to a certain level with your business, or I don't know, you get a premises and hire on staff, I should be able to just be happy for you for getting that goals. It doesn't take anything away from me or my achievements because you've achieved something different. And it's, it's easy to say that, but sometimes if you're having a discouraging week, maybe the inquiries are quiet, or I don't know, you put your name out for a project and you didn't get it, whatever happened that week that's maybe knocked your confidence a bit, and then you see someone else achieving something, it's so easy to fall into that trap.
Oh, absolutely. And it takes a while to just to pull yourself back and step back a little bit, because when you're in your feelings and when you're going through a tough time, and it doesn't come from, I think, a bad place. It doesn't come from you don't want, it's like you say, you see your friend doing amazingly and you can be so happy for them, really celebrating them, but also I feel a bit should I be doing this, should I be doing that? Sometimes I think it really helps to be able to take a step back and just really try to challenge those thoughts a bit, just so you can get a more balanced picture, rather than just thinking, oh, I've not done that. It's having going through that, well, did I take the steps to do that? Is that something I want to do? Is that success for me? What evidence is there that I'm not doing well? What evidence is there that I don't have those skills? Am I minimizing all the positives, or am I minimizing all the good stuff that's happened to me? Because I think that this is such a big thing. I think we don't celebrate that, all the small wins. Because at the end of the day, small progress is progress. Small step forwards, it's still progress. I mean, there's a concept that I really like. It's called imperfect progress, where at the end of the day, it's just, you're kind of just celebrating the progress, what you're making. It's not saying, oh, well, I have to do this tomorrow and that's perfect and that's up there. It's actually just having that space to be I'm trying and I am working towards something, and that's an achievement. It's just taking those steps forward, no matter whether they're leaps or steps. And I think being able to check yourself with that and being able to really look at, the picture. And sometimes, I swear, sometimes it's just taking 5, grabbing a cuppa, writing it down. Do your pros and cons column. What evidence is there that I should be doing more? What evidence is there that actually I'm doing pretty damn great as it is? Sometimes just having that can really, really help you. And I think it also helps cultivate that kind self-talk, where you'll see a friend and you're she's doing awesome, and then be able to say to yourself, I'm doing pretty good too. Being a bit kinder to yourself.
It is funny how we're all able to sort of support our friends and get excited for our friends' accomplishments. I think you're absolutely right with that, by the way. Most of us, I think, most of the time anyways, are able to be quite happy for other people and quite supportive and shout out about what other people are doing, but then we're so quick to diminish our own. And I don't know, not to, totally gender stereotype, but I think women in general tend to fall more into that category where we can be quite supportive of each other, but I don't know if it's we don't want to be seen to have an ego or what exactly it is, but I almost feel like we're sort of conditioned to diminish our own successes. And I don't know why that is, but I love your idea about actually writing it down. I think that's a brilliant, because I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking, like, I've got a little bulletin board in my office and I just post whatever kind of like little quotes and things on it. And I was thinking today about how I should actually just write out some goals. And as you said, I love that term, imperfect progress. Every time that I take any small steps towards that, it